One of the things I've been noticing as I'm like really leaning into the patriarchal systems and looking at divine feminine is that we're always mostly looking at life through a man's lens. And I think that's the one thing that hinders us from moving forward into like a matriarchal system is because women will tell men how they feel. We tell them what we want. We tell them what our needs are, but it always goes back to being filtered through like, well, does the man agree? Does it make sense to the man? Does the man, does his logic system also get behind it? So there are very like common everyday occurrences that we have to like deal with this through. So if you think about you go into an office and all the women are cold, but the thermostat is set to cold, and yet most of the women working in the office are women and they all have heaters under their desks. But nobody turns up the heat because the ones setting the heat are men and men aren't cold, right? So the standard is, how does the men feel? Or like with health and well-being, ice baths became a new trend, right? And so that was like all the rage, like do an ice bath, do a cold plunge. And it was only tested with men, not with women. Lo and behold, doesn't actually provide the same benefits for women as it does for men, because for women it stresses the system out too much, and what women actually need are warm baths and warm water. We know this intuitively, but like we were told cold plunge. Or like how many hours a night you should get sleep, you know? Men's systems actually need less sleep. They're probably fine on 7, 8 hours. Well, women need probably a full extra hour of sleep more than men. So think of 8, 9 hours minimum. And then if we're menstruating, going through a cycle, we might need more. Or we could look at like, what should our daily routine be? Our daily routine starts with sunrise, and we should do the same routine every day, working out, waking up, working out, eating, whatever, going to work, being productive. But women's cycles are actually on a 28-day cycle, not a 24-hour cycle. 24-hour cycle is a man's cycle. They move with the sun. Women move with the moon. And yet we've been trained, and we've trained ourselves, and the system has trained us as women to produce inside of a system and a structure that doesn't actually work for us, or isn't designed by us, or is like counterproductive and intuitive to our body. We could even look at how many stalls are in a public women's bathroom, like at a stadium or a concert. How long do we wait in line because the stalls are the same number as the men's stalls? They just mapped it. They weren't thinking that all the women are going to sit down. And so we have longer lines in the women's bathrooms. And those too usually are created by men and designed by men, not thinking about women because they're the standard. Or let's say my daughter is at school and we have a particular dress code, or she's being told to cover up her shoulders because little boys are distracted in class. We don't deal with the distractions that little boys have or how to manage the distractions. We just tell little girls to cover up because the male gender is the standard. And if we take this one step further and we look at it in personal relationships, what we'll notice is men are always bringing their opinion as the standard. What is the standard for the relationship? What do they see? What do they sense? Is it okay with them? And what women have learned is like, well, I have to convince my significant other, or he needs to say it's okay because his opinion is the baseline for the relationship. And even the most well-meaning men, because I've met a lot of really well-meaning men, well-intentioned men, still have this going on in the background. They just don't know what's going on in the background, you know, and it shows up in conversations with things like, well, I would do it, so you should do it. Or is it really necessary? Like, I don't see why that's necessary. And I think this is why we have a lot of relationships not working and women finding more peace and solitude, because we're waking up to the fact that like the standard in our reality has been so male centered, and we haven't been able to just exist or find ourselves or honor ourselves. And the best way that we can do that now is to be without a man, because without a man, we can choose what we want when we want. And we don't have to justify it ever. And I think that's what men have been like, that's the experience men have had in most of their life, is they don't have to justify their experience, their breath, their life, their wants, their desires. We have to justify and prove that we need something in order for it to get met by our hetero cis partners. So honestly, I'm really curious, like, what is your experience, male or female, in the world? Like, for men, if you've gotten this far, I commend you. Thank you for listening. Do you see this trend where, your opinion or your comfort is actually the standard, not necessarily women around you? And for women, are you noticing the same thing? And what are the other areas where the male standard exists that we just succumb to it? We don't really question it, or maybe we get annoyed by it and we know it, but I'd love to hear more about this. For the thumbnail.